रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिकाकांत राधाकांत नमस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नित्यानामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna. So welcome everyone. We are discussing from the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and yesterday we discussed the very beautiful story of the deliverance of Dhruv Maharaj, how Dhruv Maharaj he perfected his life and he went back home, back to Godhead by stepping on the head of the death personified. So today we'll be beginning the next chapter. So in this chapter we'll be beginning this chapter number 13 today. So we are discussing that Maitreya Muni told Vidura that as this Dhruv Maharaj, he went back home, back to God. It was so very glorious that Narad Muni was once glorified. He once glorified Dhruva at the sacrifice which was performed by the Prachetas. So then Vidura, he was very alert. Anything which is not in line, Vidura would catch. And this is the case with all the hearers of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the 8th canto also it comes. So when Parikshit Shukdev Goswami is describing about the various Manvantara avatars, so he says that in one Manvantara avatara, Hari was there. Lord Hari appeared as Manvantara avatar, and he delivered this Gajendra. So then immediately Parikshit Maharaj says, wait, I have heard this Gajendra story. It is a very famous story. Please tell me about Gajendra. And then the whole Gajendra Moksha pastime comes. And then again he says, Lord appeared as Ajita in the Samudra Manthan Leela. So again Parikshit Maharaj says, please tell me about that Samudra Manthan Leela. That is also very famous pastime. So similarly, Vidura, when he heard from Maitreya that Prachetas, Narad Muni glorified Dhruva at the sacrifice of Prachetas. So now Vidura became little inquisitive and he asked. Although it is described that Vidura, when he heard the story of Dhruva, he became very, very enlivened, overwhelmed with emotional ecstasies, devotional ecstasies. So Prabhupada writes that transcendental matter of Krishna consciousness is so nice that no one is tired of hearing and speaking. Those who are not devotees, they think, oh, what? How can these people devote so much of time simply to talk about God? Many times people, they ask ISKCON devotees, अरे मंदिर में दिन भर आप लोग क्या करते हैं? मंदिर में जाओ, घंटी बजाओ, प्रणाम करो, प्रसाद मिलेगा, लेके आओ. What do all people do whole day in temple? So therefore, the non-devotees, they can never understand what we are doing. Similarly, the devotees, they can never digest what non-devotees are doing. So devotees, they are always satisfied and they are never satisfied. Krishna Katha is such a wonderful thing. One is satisfied only by hearing Krishna Katha, and one is never satisfied by hearing Krishna Katha. What does it mean? That only Krishna Katha gives satisfaction to the devotees. No, all the material things cannot give satisfaction. It is manohara, it is attractive to the mind. But even if we keep on hearing Krishna Katha whole day, the devotee will not be satisfied. Ko nama tripyet rasavit kathayam Mahatamaikanta Parayanasya Harerudaram Charitam Vishuddham Shushrushatam no Vitanotu Vidwan. So Konam Tripyed, who can be satisfied by hearing Krishna Katha Rasavit? Those who are the knowers of Rasa. They can never be satisfied in hearing Krishna Katha. So Prabhupada writes this, nobody can chant a mundane name over a period of time. But this chanting of Hare Krishna, because it is a transcendental chanting, devotees can keep on repeating the same three words. This Hare Krishna mantra is made up of just three words, Hare, Krishna and Ram. But the devotees, they go on chanting Hare Krishna 24 hours a day without being fatigued. So Vidura, he became very happy and enlightened. So he asked Maitreya, who were the Prachetas? To which family did they belong? And where was this sacrifice performed? You mentioned that they were performing a sacrifice. Where were they performing sacrifice? Which family they are coming from? So when Maitreya, he asked, then it is described that Vidura, when he asked Maitreya, so then he said that Narada, he was a very, very exalted personality. He personally saw the Supreme Lord and he compiled this whole Pancharatrika method of bhakti. Prabhupada writes about what is this Pancharatrika Vidhi. So Pancharatrika Vidhi means worshipping the deities of the Lord, temple worship. So he says there are two ways of worship. One is a Bhagavat Vidhi, other is Pancharatrika Vidhi. Both are, Prabhupada writes in that purport that ISKCON is running on these two rails. These are the two rails of the track, Bhagavat Vidhi and Pancharatrika Vidhi. So Bhagavat Vidhi means Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, all these 9 processes of devotional service. And Bhagavat and Pancharatrika Vidhi means temple worship, worshipping the deities of the Lord. So therefore, it is recommended that those who are new in Krishna consciousness, they should be given this service of worshipping deities, because this makes them attracted to the process of Krishna consciousness very fast. So then Vidura says, I am eager to hear. Please tell me, where were they performing this sacrifice? And Narad Muni glorified the qualities of Dhruva in this sacrifice. Please tell me, I am very, very eager to hear about them. So Prabhupada writes that, Narad Muni, he is always glorifying the pastimes of the Lord. But in this verse, it is mentioned that he does not only glorify the Lord, he glorifies the devotees of the Lord also. Vaishnava Katha and Krishna Katha both are equally potent. So therefore, when it is a culture in the devotee community that we should glorify other devotees. Otherwise, in the outside world, it is very, very difficult to glorify others. People, they can hear their own glorification for a whole day, but they cannot glorify others. Whenever some birthday festival is there, birthday is there of some devotees, all the devotees, they come and they glorify this particular devotee. One time, one devotee was sharing that he went to one program and this person was just coming to Krishna consciousness, and he had invited all his friends because it was his birthday. So, this our devotee, he thought, our culture is glorifying this person. So he announced, so now today is the birthday of this very wonderful devotee. Everybody should speak few words of glorification for him. And to his surprise, he found out that nobody was able to glorify him. Nobody could find any good qualities in that person. Even his family members could not tell even few lines in glorification. So that is the condition of the world many times. So therefore, it is a culture in devotee community that we glorify the other devotees for their devotion, for their wonderful qualities. That is the that is the quality which is expected out of us. Shrutasya pumsam shuchirashramasya nanmanjasa suribiritortah tat tadgunano shravanam mukunda padaravinda hridayeshu esham. So it is described people who hear from the spiritual masters with great labor, what they should hear? They should hear from these great devotees about the Tattad Gunanu Shravanam Mukunda. Tattad Gunanu Shravanam. We have to hear about the qualities and the characteristics of the devotees of the Lord. Because Mukunda Padarvinda Hridayeshu Esham. Because these devotees, they have Supreme Lord's lotus feet in their hearts. So therefore, devotees, they like to glorify others. If we are not happy in the glorification of other devotees, then it is very difficult to advance in Krishna consciousness. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he meets Ramanand Rai, he says, and he tells Ramanand Rai, you glorify Krishna. And Ramanand Rai glorifies beautiful attributes of Krishna consciousness in wonderful ways. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes into ecstasy. He says, you are a greatest devotee of the Lord. He started glorifying Ramanand Rai. Ramanand Rai in turn, devotees, they never accept, when somebody glorifies, you have understood my heart. All these other people are in ignorance. You have only understood. They never accept that I have these qualities, and even if I have these qualities, it is all by the mercy of the devotees. This is the right way to respond to the glorification. When sometimes devotees are glorified, they say, "Nahi, Prabhuji, mere mein to kuch gun hai nahi." Are dikh rahe hain gun? If somebody is singing nicely and you tell him, you are singing so nicely, and he says, no, I am singing like a donkey. That is not a humility. That looks like a improper way. This person is genuinely glorifying you. First of all, we have to accept, okay, thank you very much for glorifying me, but we should not take that glorification with ourselves. Just transfer it to the Guru Parampara. Transfer it to Krishna. You are glorifying me. Thank you very much for encouragement. But whatever I am doing, it is by the mercy of Krishna and the Vaishnavas. So Ramanand Rai says, Hriday prerna kar jihvai karavani ki kohiye bhal mand kichui na jani. He says that you are inspiring me from my heart. What I don't know anything what is good and wrong. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not less. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Prabhu kahe mayavadi ami to sannyasi bhakti tattva nahi jani mayavadi bhasi. Mahaprabhu says, I am a mayavadi sannyasi. I don't know any type of bhakti. Sarabhoma sange mora man nirmal hoila Krishna bhakti tattva kaha tahare puchila. So he's saying out of his humility that Ramanand Sarabhoma sange mora man nirmal hoila. I associated with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, I became purified. So who purified whom? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually transformed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya from being a Mayavadi to a devotee. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, I am to Mayavadi sannyasi. By associating with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, I became purified. But when I asked him, please tell me more about bhakti, he said, Teho kahe ami nahi jani Krishna Katha, Sabe Ramananda jani teho nahi yatha. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, I don't know any Krishna Katha. Sab Ramananda Rai knows. He is not here. Please, you go to Ramananda Rai and ask him, Ramananda Rai oiche Godavari tire, adhikari hoete ho Vidya Nagare. Ramananda Rai is a very, very great governor in Vidyanagar. So, Shudra Vishay Jnane Upekshana Kariba, Amara Vachane Tare Avashya Miliba. Don't consider him to be a Shudra and Vishay. Externally, he may look like that. He's a very great devotee. So, this is how in devotee community, everybody likes to glorify others. So, Narad Muni also glorified Dhruva. So, Vidura is asking that, please tell me about Prachetas. You told Narad Muni glorified Dhruva in the sacrifice of Prachetas. Please tell me about Prachetas. So since Prachetas, they were born in the dynasty of Dhruva. So therefore, Maitreya Muni starts the description of the descendants of Dhruva. So first of all, he says that, we had heard that Dhruva had two sons, Utkala and Vatsara. So yesterday somebody asked, who became the king? So Utkala, he did not accept the throne. After Dhruva, he was leaving, he wanted to make somebody king. Utkala, he did not accept the throne because he was a self-realized soul. He had no interest in material things. He wanted to also connect to the Supreme Lord, completely dedicate his life. He was the eldest son, but still he did not accept the throne. And there are beautiful qualities of Utkal which are described. He was peaceful, detached, equipoised. He saw the Supreme Lord in all the yajnas, in all the jivas. He was seeing Krishna. He was seeing the Paramatma in everyone's heart. He was a Brahman realized soul. By the practice of his Ashtanga Yoga, all his material contaminations had gone. So therefore, who was left? Vatsara. So Vatsara, although Utkala, he was a very qualified king, but he behaved like a madman. We hear the story of Jadabharat also. Jadabharat, although he was a very, very sane person, but he behaved like a madman. He was not ready to learn anything from his father. When father he was teaching him Gayatri, he was not able to understand. He pretended that he is a madman, dumb, deaf, and he was teaching that after you evacuate you should wash your hand. Jadabharat would do ulta, you would first wash hand and then you would go for evacuation. So Utkala, so main thing is, when these great souls they behave like this, we should understand they are doing it so that nobody glorifies them, nobody appreciates them, because when people appreciate you, the bodily identification becomes strong. So Utkala, he appeared like a madman, like blind and deaf and he was looking as if like a fire which was covered by ashes. So therefore, the younger brother Vatsara, he became the king. So then, Prabhupada writes that for all the practical purposes, the whole world is full of non-devotees. So one kind of devotee is called Bhajananandi. Just like this Utkala, he was like a Bhajananandi. He was completely absorbed in chanting and taking names of Lord and meditating on the form of the Lord. And then Prabhupada writes there are other type of devotees who are Goshthanandis. They preach this message of Krishna consciousness to the whole world. So this Utkala, he went to the forest, and Vatsara, he became king. So now he describes, Maitreya Muni describes the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. He says Vatsara, he married Swaratithi, and from Swaratithi, they had 6 sons. So not 2, here 2 is written. They had 6 sons, Pushparna, Tigmaketu, Isha, Urja, Vasu and Jaya. Then Pushparna married Prabha, and they had 3 sons, Pratara, Madhyandiram and Sayam. And then Dosha, they had 3 sons, Pradosha, Nishita and Vishta. Vishta married Pushkarini. They had Swarateja. Swarateja married Akuti. And this is important. Swarateja married Akuti. And they had one son called Chakshusha. So this Akuti is not the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. That is a different Akuti. This is a different Akuti. So this Chakshusha, he became the 6th Manu. Currently 7th Manu is going on. The previous Manu, 6th Manu, that 6th Manvantara, the Manu was Chakshusha. So this person, Chakshusha, he became the 6th Manu. And then Chakshusha married Nadwala, and they had 12 sons. One of them was Ulmuka. Ulmuka married Pushkarani, and then they had again 6 sons. One of them was Anga. And Anga married Sunita, who was the daughter of death personified. And they had one son who was Vena, and who was very crooked. And then Maitreya Muni says that, Anga Maharaj, he became so disgusted with his son Vena that he left home. And then he says that, when this Anga Maharaj left home, Vena became the king, and the sages, but he was so very cruel that he would torture people. He would, there was no rules and regulations. All the religious practices were stopped. So the sages, they became very angry and they cursed Vena. He died. Then after the death of Vena, the rogues and the thieves, they started flourishing. and all the citizens, they suffered very badly. So seeing this, the great sages, they churned the right hand of Veena, and from that right hand of Veena, Prithu Maharaj came out. He became the emperor of the whole world. Original emperor, it is described. Adyah Shitishwaraha. So in that, Prabhupada writes that this monarchy is better than democracy, because if the democracy is very strong, then the regulative principles within the kingdom are upheld very nicely. And Prabhupada gives example, that he says that even 100 years ago, in the state of Kashmir, India, the king was so strong that if a thief is caught, so his hands would be chopped off. And therefore, because of this strict and strong administration, there were no thieves in the kingdom. So, then after Maitremuni describes about all these things, Vena, he became, cruel, and then the sages cursed him, and then Prithu Maharaj came out. Vidura again become inquisitive. एक मिनट इतना जल्दी मत, slow down, explain in great detail. How is it possible? A bad son to a good king? How is this possible? So he says, tasya शीलनिधे साधोर ब्रह्मणस्य महात्मनः राज्ञ कथम अभूद्दुष्टा प्रजा यद विमनाययो. He says, Vidura is asking Maitreya that, oh my dear Brahmana, Anga, he was शीलनिधे. He was the ocean of all the good qualities. He was very, very gentle. Brahmanasya Mahatmana, he had high character. He was a saintly personality. He was a lover of Brahmanical culture. Katham, how is this possible that such a great soul will have a dushta son, a bad son like Vena? So how is this possible? So Prabhupada writes an interesting purport here. Prabhupada writes that sometimes, under certain conditions, a father, mother, child, or wife becomes an enemy. So this we are reading the 21st verse of the 13th chapter. So Prabhupada writes there that sometimes, under certain conditions, a father, mother, a child, or a wife becomes an enemy. And in what conditions these four become enemy? He says, he's quoting Chanakya Pandit. He says, a father is an enemy when he's in too much of debt. Mother is an enemy if she marries for a second time, or she is attracted to some paramour. A wife is an enemy. This is interesting, Chanakya Pandit says, wife is an enemy if she is very beautiful. And then son is an enemy when he is a foolish rascal. In this way, these four members can become enemies. So, Trinkarta Pita Shatrur Mata Cha Vyabhicharini Bharya Rupavati Shatru Putra Shatrur Apanditaha. So, Putra Shatru Apandita. If son is a rascal, foolish, he is an enemy. If Bharya, wife, is beautiful, she is an enemy. Why it is described that if Bharya is beautiful, she is an enemy? Because what is the purpose of the human existence? To come out of this material world, to become detached from these material facilities, material entanglements. If the wife is so very beautiful, the husband will be completely attached to the wife, and the result will be he'll be more and more entangled. That's why it is described Bharya Rupavati Shatru. So then he asks, how is this possible? Anga was such a good king. And secondly, you are saying the sages cursed a king. Why did the great sages who knew the dharma, they can act in such a sinful way? How is this possible? How can they curse the king? King is not to be cursed. And thirdly, he asks that how is this possible that the citizens, they disregarded Vena? A king, even if sinful, should not be disregarded by citizens. So how is it that the citizens disregarded Vena? Prabhupada writes, in the earlier times, above the king was the control of the Brahmanas. And if needed, Brahmanas would dethrone the king or kill him, not with any weapon, but with the mantra or Brahma shap. So after asking all these things, he says, please explain. I want to hear about the activities of King Vena. You know past, present, future, you know everything. Para avara vittamaha, paravaragya srishi, it is described in the first canto also. Kalena avyaktaram hasa, Vyasadev, he was para avaragya, the past, present, and future. So Vidura is also telling to Maitra, you know past, present, future, you know everything. You are a faithful devotee of the Lord. Please tell me how this happened. So then Maitreya Muni continues. He says that Anga Maharaj, he once performed a great Ashwamedha Yajna. But in that Ashwamedha Yajna, ironically, the demigods did not appear. Generally, in the previous times, when some yajna would be performed, all the devatas, they would personally appear to take their part of oblations. But he says that actually in Brahmana, Prabhupada writes in the purport, in Kali Yuga, there are no Brahmanas who can actually perform yajnas in a proper way. And especially this Ashwamedha. Ashwamedha means the horse is sacrificed. So how is this possible that horses or cow, there are cow sacrificial yajnas also. How is this possible that cows and the horses, they are sacrificed, they are killed? Actually, they are not killed to eat, to be eaten. The animal who is killed gets a new youthful body. So therefore, if somebody cannot give a youthful body to an animal, there is no right for him to kill that animal. There are 5 things which are prohibited in Kali Yuga. Ashwamedham gamalambam sannyasam palapaitrikam devarena sutotpattim kalau pancha vivarjayet. These are the 5 things which were happening in the earlier ages. But in Kali Yuga, these are prohibited. Who are these 5? Which are these 5 things? Ashwamedha. Ashwamedha means sacrifice of horse. Gavalambam, sacrifice of cow. Sannyasam, sannyas means mayavat sannyas. Palapaitrikam. Palapaitrikam means offering non-vegetarian offerings to the Pitris. And Devarena Sutotpattim, begetting child from the brother of the husband. All these things were happening. We see the story of how this Dhritarashtra and Pandu, they were born. Because the Vichitra Virya died, so Satyavati requested all these wives of Vichitra Virya to beget child from Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva was also brother of Vichitra Virya. But in Kali Yuga, all these are prohibited. So therefore, when the demigods, they did not come for accepting oblations, so our Anga Maharaj, he went to the sages and he asked, how is this possible? What are the reasons why demigods did not come? So the sages say, Arey, we chanted all the mantras properly. We performed this sacrifice very nicely. But still, we are not finding any reason for the demigods to feel insulted in any way. So then King Anga, he asked, kindly tell me if I have committed any offenses because of which the demigods are not accepting. So the head priest, he said, actually, you are sinless in this life, but in the past life you have performed some sinful activity, and that's why you do not have a son in this life. And because you do not have a son, that is the reason because these demigods are not appearing. Prabhupada writes, the purpose of a marrying is to beget a son, because the son is necessary to deliver his fathers and the forefathers from any hellish condition of life. That is called putra. What is the meaning of putra? Pun naraka trayate iti putra. There is a naraka, hell called Pun nama naraka trayate. So this putra, son, performs the Shraddha ceremony and can deliver the ancestors. So therefore, Chanakya Pandit, Prabhupada quotes Chanakya, he says, Putra hinam griham shunyam. If there is no son, then married life is simply abominable. So therefore, when the Devata, all these sages, they informed Anga Maharaj. So Anga Maharaj, he requested all these rishis, please, if you pray to the Lord for asking for a son for me, then I'll also become very, very happy. So then when all the sages, they hear that Anga is requesting like this, then they perform another sacrifice. And then as they perform this huge, great sacrifice, from the sacrificial fire, a personality appeared from this altar, fire altar. He was carrying a golden pot of payasam. And Anga Maharaj, when he saw this beautiful personality, effulgent personality, he became very happy. And this personality gave this pot of payasam to Anga Maharaj. Anga Maharaj, he gave this pot to his wife, Sunita. Sunita, she was the daughter of death personified, Mrityu. So there is one particular word which is used in context with Anga. He says, Anga Maharaj was Udaradhi. He was very, very liberal. Prabhupada writes, this Udaradhi is a very significant word. Why? Because the wife of king, this Sunita, was not fit to accept any benediction. Yet the king was liberal to give that pot of payasam to his wife. And then he says that, actually, and Prabhupada in this purport, he talks about himself. He says that, because in this verse, it is said that if somebody does not get his wife, he was not so beautiful, and his wife, because of his wife, he was not so fortunate. Prabhupada writes about himself also somewhere that I was, he would speak to his disciples. I was also not so much happy with my marriage because my wife was not so beautiful. But then, my father told me that, it is better because it will give you an impetus to become detached from the family life in due course. So that's what Prabhupada would say sometimes to his disciples. So then Sunita, she took this payasam, and as a result, son was born, and his name was Veena. This Veena, he was a very, very irreligious child because he took all the qualities of his maternal grandfather called Mrityu. And Prabhupada writes, generally, the daughter receives the qualifications of her father and the son acquires those of the mother. So this is how, because the daughter, the father was Mrityu, so Sunita was not such a great wife. She was having lots of sinful tendencies, and therefore those tendencies also came in her son, that is Veena. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, this is the arrangement of the Lord. And he says that sometimes the Lord arranges an unfortunate wife or a cruel son for his devotee. Why Lord does that? To increase his detachment so that he gradually becomes detached from his wife and progresses on the path of liberation. So then the cruelties of King Veena, they are described. At King Veena, he was so cruel. The small child, he was not still a king. He was a small child. He was so very cruel. He would unnecessarily kill the innocent animals. When he would play with the friends, he would kill his friends as a plaything, just like animals for slaughter. Anga Maharaj, he tried to reform Veena by punishing him many times, different ways he tried, but he failed. So in this way, when Anga, he saw that this Veena is not getting reformed, he became very deeply aggrieved, and he thought to himself. He started thinking that, sonless people are more fortunate. Earlier he was becoming anxious that I don't have son. Now he's saying, sonless people, they are more fortunate, for they do not suffer the unbearable grief caused by bad sins. And then he says, actually, a sinful son destroys one's reputation, causes irreligion and quarrel. And Prabhupada writes that it is said that a married couple must have a son, otherwise family life is void. But a son born without good qualities is as good as a blind eye. A blind eye has no use for seeing, but it is simply unbearably painful. So therefore, King Ang Maharaj also thought that I am so unfortunate because I have a very bad son. He says, actually, no intelligent person desires for a bad son like this. The bad son like my son, Vena, just increases the bondage of illusion. Therefore, he says, a bad son is, but then after saying all this, he says, actually, the bad son is better than a good son. Now he's saying another thing. First, you are saying, sonless men are more fortunate. Now he says, actually, a bad son is better. He says, why? How a bad son is better than a good son? Kadapatyam varam manye sadapatyashu champada nirvidyeta grihan martyo yat klesha nivaha griha. He says, apatya, kad apatya means a bad son, varam manye is better than a good son, because sad apatyat shucham patat. A good son creates an attachment for home, whereas a bad son does not create attachment. A bad son creates a hellish life from which an intelligent man naturally becomes detached. And therefore, Prabhupada quotes that Prahlad Maharaj is also telling the same thing. This material life, if it is not centered around Krishna consciousness, it is like a blind well. Hitvatam patam grihamanda kupam. And materialist people, they fall down in this dark well of material existence. Tavad kara griham, what is that? Ya tavad ragadayastena tavad kara griham yavan mohangri nigro yavan krishna te jana. It is described in Bhagavatam. People who have not kept Krishna in the center of their lives, for them, this graha, their home is like a karagraha, prison. And for them, the attachments which they have for their family, they are like the shackles. Thinking like this, Anga Maharaj, he becomes indifferent from his family life. And eventually, in the middle of the night, he changes his clothes and he leaves home, just to develop attraction and connection with the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada writes, there are many great souls who leave home in this way, in the dead of the night. And when all the citizens, they came to know next morning, they were searching King Anga everywhere. They could not find him. So ultimately, they all became disappointed. They returned to the city and informed the sages what had happened. So this is the end of the 13th chapter. Then after that, the 14th chapter starts, which describes the atrocities of King Vena. So this is entitled The Story of King Vena. So then, when Anga Maharaj, he left his home, so the sages, they became very concerned. The sages were headed by Bhrigu. So all the sages, they are always concerned about the welfare of the people in general. And there should be a king, otherwise the citizens are unprotected. Then what to do now? So they called mother of the Vena, Sunita, and with her consent, they enthroned Vena as the king. And as they enthroned Vena on the throne, Vena, he was so very cruel. His cruelty was well known everywhere. So when thieves, they came to know that Vena has become the king, they became more fearful, So they stopped all their theft. They were very afraid themselves and they started hiding themselves. So Vena, he was so very proud because he was the ruler of this whole Bhumandala. So he became proud of his wealth, strength, and he thought himself to be the greatest of all the kings. So now in this blind, and he was completely blind, madandha, kamandha. So he was blinded by intoxication and wealth, dhanandha. And in this way, he started traveling everywhere. Evam madando utsikto nirankusha ivadvipaha paryatan rathamasthaya kampayan ivarodasi. So he was madandha. He was completely blinded by intoxication. Nirankusha means without any control. He was roaming all over the Bhumandala. Just like, and when he was roaming, it was appearing that sky is trembling. So this Veena, because he was very, very irreligious, he prohibited all the sacrifices, and he prohibited charity, religious activities. He prohibited everything. Prabhupada writes an interesting purport here. He says that the religious situation, the world situation is so tense. He's talking about 30, 50 years back. He says the religious situation is the world situation is so tense that any moment government may issue declaration to stop religious rituals. Eventually, the world situation will become so degraded that it will be impossible for pious men to live on the planet. Therefore, the sane person should execute Krishna consciousness very seriously and go back home, back to Godhead. So it is a dire need. It is urgent and important. Many times people put Krishna consciousness and spirituality in not urgent, not important. But this is the most urgent thing, because we don't know when we are going to die, and most important thing, because if we take care of this one thing properly, all the other things will fall in line. One time, Allen Ginsberg, he went to meet Prabhupada, and he was asking, Swamiji, what will happen at the end of Kali Yuga? Prabhupada, went little near his ears and said, I will eat you and you will eat me. That's all. So Allen Ginsberg, he became little, concerned and said, Swamiji, is this true? Prabhupada said, yes. Then he said, what will happen to your disciples? Prabhupada said, by that time, all my disciples would have gone to the spiritual world. So therefore, we should not take this as a guarantee card. Okay, Prabhupada has said, we'll all go back to Godhead. But this is for us to take very, very seriously, that if we don't accept this process to our heart, with all our hearts, then we may lose the goal. So therefore, it is very, very important that, as Prabhupada is writing in this purport, that it is a great urgency that we have to take this Krishna consciousness very seriously and go back to God, and otherwise we'll be there to see all these things at the end of Kali Yuga. The description of the end of Kali Yuga is very, very ghastly description. There would be nothing to eat. People would eat their own children. All these ghastly things are described. Saintly people, they would be staying in caves. There would be nothing to eat many times. So therefore, Prabhupada writes, it is urgency that we have to take this process very seriously. And then, when Veena, he was performing so many austerities, so many atrocities, seeing this, the sages, they became concerned. And they started discussing among themselves. Because saintly people, they are always concerned about the welfare of people in general. So they started thinking what to do, how to solve the situation. And because people, they were in danger from two directions. Irresponsible king on one side and thieves and dacoits on the other side. It was as if, there is an ant on a log of wood, and the log of wood is burning from the two ends. So the ant has nowhere to go. That was the situation of the citizens. So fearing, that in this situation there will be arajakta. Arajakta means a state where there is complete chaos in the society. So sages, they started thinking what to do with this king. This Veena, he is such an unqualified king. And because of this king, people are becoming disturbed. Prabhupada writes, there must be a good environment to practice Krishna consciousness. And it is the responsibility of the people who are in the responsible positions to make sure that the citizens, to make some suitable arrangements that citizens can practice this Krishna consciousness properly. That's how Yudhishthir Maharaj and Pandavas and Parikshit Maharaj, it is described that when they were ruling, they made sure that everybody can follow this Krishna consciousness properly. Avipala dharma raja pitrivat ranjayan praja nispriya sarvakamebhyo Krishna padanu sevaya. They were themselves devoted to Krishna, and they made sure that the whole citizens are in peaceful mood so that they can execute bhakti properly. So then the sages, they are thinking what to do now. They are thinking, we supported Vena. We have made him the king. Because we have made him king, we are also responsible. So if we don't stop this sinful activities of the king, we will also become responsible. We will also become sinful. So they started thinking what to do. It was as if we are maintaining a snake by feeding him milk. So sages are thinking like this. So therefore they said, okay, first we'll try to pacify him by good instructions. We have appointed this king and we'll try to pacify him by good instructions. And then if he'll not listen to our instructions, then what we'll do? We'll kill him. We shall burn him by our Brahma Tej. So then Prabhupada writes that saintly people, they are not interested in political affairs, but they are always interested in taking care of the welfare of the citizens. So therefore, these sages who are peace-loving, they had nothing to do with the political issues, but they had to take this situation in their hand because they wanted to save the people in general. So therefore, Prabhupada writes that saintly people, they have no such power now. In Kali Yuga, saintly people do not have the power. They cannot curse anybody and kill people who are not following the principles of religion. What is the maximum saintly people can do? Chant this Hare Krishna mantra. That is the biggest welfare activity. That is the weapon which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come with, So therefore, one time Prabhupada went to was in Delhi. Actually, this is before Prabhupada went to America. And he was trying to preach in India. So he wanted to, start a movement, organization, society in India. So he was in Delhi, so he went to meet Mayor. So Mayor said, okay, I'll trust you that your process is very wonderful and genuine. I'll help you if you can show me some substantial, results. So he said, okay, what should I do? So the Mayor said, there is a jail in Delhi. You go and with your process, with your instructions, with your spiritual knowledge, you reform the prisoners there. Prabhupada took that challenge. Prabhupada started going every day to the jail and he was preaching these prisoners. And within 1 month, the superintendent of jail, he came to Mayor and told there is a substantial improvement in the behavior of the prisoners. And then actually this Mayor became impressed and he started helping Prabhupada because Prabhupada wanted to, some help for printing the books also. So thus, when they decided this, so then all of them, they went to Veena. Although they were very angry, they concealed their anger. They were smiling externally and they're trying to pacify Veena. They said, "Oh Veena, please hear our advice properly. If you hear our advice, your life duration will increase. Opulence, fame, strength, everything will increase. Oh Veena, please follow the principles of dharma with your mind, words and intelligence and the body. If you are following the principles of dharma, you will become free from the miseries in this world. And after this life, you will attain liberation. And therefore, and then he says that your activities should not be the cause of spoiling the lives of other people. If this happens, then you will also fall down from your royal position." Then he says, then all these sages, they say, a pious king who protects the citizens, he becomes successful in this life and he attains a higher destination in the next life also. A pious king who makes sure that the people are following the principles of Varnashrama, he is the one who satisfies the Lord. Because Lord is always, concerned with one thing, how people come close to him. This Varnashram system is designed in such a way that people, they can come close to Krishna by following their Swabhava. Prabhupada writes that this is the ultimate result for practice of all the yajnas. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram. So therefore, all the varnashram duties, whatever we are doing in our Krishna consciousness, it should be done for only one thing, to please Krishna. Ata pumbir dvijasreshta varnashram vibhagasha sanushritasya dharmasya samsiddhir hari toshanam. Hari toshanam, satisfaction of the Lord, is the ultimate goal of all our activities of material and spiritual life. Then they say, O Vena, when the Lord is satisfied, you can achieve anything in this world. Tasmin tushte kima prapyam. What is unachievable for a devotee of the Lord? A devotee of the Lord can achieve anything in this world. So then they say that, if you worship the Supreme Lord, He is the enjoyer of all the sacrifices. He is the sum total of all the Vedas. Traimayam. He is the Lord of all the austerities. Tapomayam. He is the owner of all the ingredients of sacrifice. Dravyamayam. So therefore, please act in such a way that your citizens are directed to worship the Supreme Lord. And if Lord is pleased, then Devatas will be pleased. Devatas, they are expansions of the Lord. If Devatas are satisfied, they will give you all the desired results. But if you disrespect the Devatas by stopping the sacrifice, you will be doomed. Vena, when he heard all these instructions, he became very angry. And he said, just to see how Vena is responding. He says, Balisha batayu yamva adharme dharmamanina ye vrittidam patim hitva jaram patim upasate. So he's saying, Balisha, you are all inexperienced. He starts giving all bad words to the sages. He says, you are Balisha, you are an inexperienced. Adharme dharma manina. You are considering our dharma to be dharma. What is the dharma? Dharma is, he says that vrittidam patim hitva. It is, you are behaving, like what? You are behaving like a unchaste wife who gives up her real husband and she's searching for a paramour. So he says that you are telling me to worship devatas. You are unchaste. I am your husband. The king is supposed to be the husband, is the controller of all the Brahminical class, and you are telling me you are not worshipping me, you are worshipping Supreme Lord. So it is like a unchaste wife. So therefore, Chakravarti Thakur says that, Vena is saying, I am your maintainer, If I forbid you to pluck fruits and roots, you will immediately die. So he's saying, I am allowing you to eat and you are telling me to go to worship Devatas. He says, king is the Supreme Lord. You are telling me to worship Supreme Lord. I am the Supreme Lord. Avajananti ame mooda niparupam anishwaram nanu vindanti te bhadram ihaloke parattacha. He says, those who are moodha, he's calling all these sages as foolish. Those people who are out of ignorance do not worship king. Niparupinam Ishwaram. Nripa, king is the Supreme Lord himself. They experience happiness neither in this life nor in the next life. And then he says, actually, your affection for the Devatas, it is exactly like affection of an unchaste woman. She gives up the affection for husband for a paramour. He says, king is the reservoir of all the Devatas. He says, king is Sarva Deva Mayo Nripa. He says, Vishnur Virincho Girisha Indra Vayu Yamoravi Parjanyo Dhana Soma Shitiragni Apampati Ete Channe Cha Vibhuda Prabhavo Varashapayo Dehe Bhavanti Nripate Sarva Deva Mayo Nripaha. He says, king is the reservoir of all the Devatas. Vishnu, Brahma, Shiva, Indra, Vayu, Yama, Ravi, Parjanya, Kuvera, Soma, Earth. Agni, all are competent to bestow benedictions or curses. They are all residing in the body of king. So therefore, worship me. Whatever you are telling me na to worship devtas, you all worship me first. So therefore, I am the enjoyer of all the sacrifices. So then the sages, when they hear this, they become very angry. And Vena, he had completely perverse intelligence. He was so very sinful. He had completely deviated from this path of spiritual life. He lost all his good fortune, and he could not accept the good words and instructions of the sages. Prabhupada writes, as soon as one disobeys the authority, he immediately becomes very sinful and loses all good fortune. So the king was so puffed up and impudent that he dared disrespect the great saintly personalities. So therefore, if you want to advance in Krishna consciousness, this quality of obedience is a very, very important quality. When there's some superiors, they are telling to do something, we have to be obedient to the will and the desire of the superiors. That's what Narad Muni told. He said, I had 6 qualities. Tasya me anuraktasya prashritasya hatainashah shraddhadanasya balasya dantasya anucharasya cha. He says that I was anurakta, attached to devotees. Prashritasya means I was obedient. I was obedient follower of the great devotees of the Lord. Hatainashah, I was completely sinless. Shraddhadanasya, I was completely faithful. Dantasya, sense controlled. Anucharasya cha, I was a follower of them. So therefore, in the life of Krishna consciousness, we have to be very, very obedient to the will of the superiors. But this Vena, he was so very disobedient. All the sages, they became very angry. Started saying, kill him, kill him, kill him. He's the most dreadful. If he lives, he'll quickly turn the whole world to ashes. So he says, so Chakravarti Thakur writes that actually, saintly persons, they are generally kind to everyone. But if the king is demoniac like serpents and scorpions, it is the duty of the saintly person to correct the system. There is a one verse which is described, Sadhur apimodati vrishchik sarpahatya. So Prabhupada, once he heard and saw that when he once went to his guru's ashrama, Saraswati Thakur's matha, there was one snake. And Saraswati Thakur, he told all his disciples, kill him, kill that snake. So Prabhupada, when he, at Tamabacharande, when he saw this, he was confused. How is it that a saintly personality is behaving in this way? But then Prabhupada shares that when he read this verse, Sadhur api modati vrishchik sarpahatya, even saintly people, they become happy when serpents and scorpions, they are killed. So the sages, they became very angry. And they said that this Vena is impudent. He is a shameless person. He has blasphemed the Supreme Lord. He does not deserve to sit on the throne. Who else can he criticize the Supreme Lord? So therefore, he should be killed. So therefore, saying this, he chanted. All these sages, they chanted some mantra just by hunkar, hunkrita. They did not kill this Vena by weapons. Simply by angry words, they killed him. So when mother of Vena, Sunita, she came to know, she became very aggrieved. Mother is always mother. However sinful the child may be, the mother always loves the child. She thinks my son is the most qualified son in the whole world. So she did not burn the body. She preserved the body of the Vena with special ingredients and mantras. So then after that, it is mentioned that the sages, once they assembled for discussing Krishna Katha, Hari Katha, and they were observing that there is calamity and chaos which is increasing in the whole society and country. Thinking this, they started wondering what to do now. Because Brahmanas, they killed all these sages, they killed Vena in the emergency situation. But now they are thinking what to do. So then they thought over it, and they came to the conclusion that we have to appoint another king. So then they churned this body of Veena. It was kept in some chemicals. Some, as his mother was preserving the body. So the sages, they churned the thighs of Veena, and this thighs of Veena, when it was churned, then a dark blackish personality came out, and he was a very dwarf person, and his name was Bahuka. So Chakravarti Thakur writes that, and Prabhupada also writes that, why the sages, they started churning the body of Veena, because they thought that, this Anga was such a great king, he was a great devotee of the Lord, so there was a purity in the hereditary line. But because Anga married daughter of death, so therefore the semen of Anga became contaminated, and as a result this Veena was born. But the ingredients by which this body was made, it carries the ingredients of Anga Maharaj also. So therefore they thought that from this body we can create another body which will be very, very pious. And so they thought, first we have to remove this sinful part of this body, and then we can churn a good part. So they churned the thighs, and Bahuka came out. Bahuka was a blackest, short complexioned person, and he had large jaws, flat nose, reddish eyes, copper colored hair. And then as he appeared, he submissively bowed down, and he asked all the sages, what should I do? So the sages, they knew that this person is a very sinful person. So all these sages, they told him, you sit down. Please sit. So sit is called Nishida. Sit. Don't go anywhere. We'll tell you. Just sit down here. Please sit. So and then the sages, they told that you go to the forest and you make your country in the forest. And therefore this Bahuka became the father of Nishada race. So then after this, so this is the end of the 14th chapter. So then after that, in the 15th chapter, it is described that, so the sages, after churning the thighs of Veena, when this Bahuka came out, then again they started churning the hands of this King Veena. And as they were churning the hands of King Veena, the male and female appeared from this hand churning of the hands, and they were looking very, very effulgent, very beautiful. The sages, they became very happy because they understood this is a Shaktiavesh avatar of the Supreme Lord. So therefore all the sages, they say, Esha Vishnor Bhagavataha Kala Bhuvan Palini Iyam Cha Lakshmya Sambhuti Parasya Purushasya Paini. So they say that this Vishnu Bhagavatah Kala, this male, is the expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is expansion of Bhuvana Palini. He is the expansion of Palana Shakti of the Lord, administrative potency. So Prithu Maharaj was Shakti Avesh Avatar. And then who is this lady? This lady is Lakshmya Sambhuti. She is the expansion of the goddess of fortune. And the interesting word used here is Purushasya Anapayini. So this lady, she is never separated from the Lord. Anapayini means never separated. Prabhupada focuses on this word Anapayini. He says that materialists should very, very clearly understand that goddess of fortune can never be separated from personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. People in this world, they want to worship Lord Mahalakshmi, Lakshmi Devi, but they don't want to worship Vishnu. This is not possible. If they want to do this, the result will be like a Ravana. Ravana wanted to enjoy Sita without serving Lord Ram. As a result was, he was destroyed. Then they say this Prithu Maharaj, this male, he'll be known as Prithu. Adyam ayam cha prathamo ragyam puman prathayita yashah prithurnama maharajo bhavishyati prithushramaha. Prithurnama maharajo. So this male, he'll be called as Prithu. He'll be great. He'll be the first among kings. Prathamo Raja. And his reputation will spread all over the world. And then who is this lady? Iyam cha sudata devi gunabhushana bhushana archirana vararoha prathum eva varundhati. So this lady, she'll be called as Archi. Archir Nam Vararoha, most beautiful lady Archi, with very nice, beautiful teeth. Guna Bhushana Bhushana. She is endowed with beauty that beautifies the ornaments which she wears. The same thing is described about Krishna also. तथैव चान्ये नरलोकवीरा यदा हवे कृष्णमुखारविन्दं नेत्रे पिबन्त्यो नयनाभिरामं पार्थास्त्रपूता पदमापुरस्य. So it is described, that when Krishna, he was on the battlefield, he was appearing so very attractive that when he killed the soldiers, they got liberated. And it was as if the ornaments which Krishna was wearing, param padam bhushana bhushanangam. It was the ornaments which Krishna was wearing were we're getting beautified by being on the body of Krishna. So same with Archi also. So they will further describe that this Lord has appeared as King Prithu himself to protect the whole world. And this Archi, she is the constant companion of the Lord. She'll become the queen of Prithu. And on the appearance of the Supreme Lord, all the sages, Devatas, Gandharvas, Apsaras, they became very happy, jubilant. The Brahmanas started praising Prithu Maharaj. The Gandharvas started singing, Apsaras started dancing, and they were showering of flowers from the skies. The Siddhas, they started showering flowers. And all the auspicious instruments were sounded. Conchs and bugles, drums and kettle drums. All the great sages, forefathers and personalities from all the heavenly planets, they arrived. So now Brahmaji, he also appeared. And he tells that he first of all observes, this is a very interesting thing. Brahmaji, he observes that, on the hand, Prithu Maharaj's right hand, there is a mark of club. And there is a mark of lotus on his feet. Seeing all these symptoms, all these signs, symbols, Brahmaji could understand this person is the partial representation of the Lord. So Prabhupada writes, before accepting anyone as an incarnation of the Lord, one should verify his identity according to the symptoms mentioned in the Shastras. So nobody can claim that I am the Supreme Lord. Many people would claim that I am Supreme Lord. But Prabhupada would tell, okay, if you are Supreme Lord, please show your qualities. Please show your Virat Rupa. And many times all these incarnations, they procrastinate. I'll show on this day. And that day they'll say, no, aaj mood nahi hai, baad mein dikhayenge. So then, after Prithu Maharaj appeared, then all the learned Brahmanas, they arrived and they wanted to coronate Prithu Maharaj. So people, they collected all the paraphernalia required for the ceremony. And there were beautiful presentations which were done by all the big personalities. All the personalities from all over the world came and they started showering so many gifts, And it is described that Kuvera brought this golden royal throne. Varuna brought the umbrella which would shower fine water particles, Just like a very beautiful experience, wonderful experience, just shower of the water particles. And then Vayu brought chamara and the Dharma brought a flower garland, and this way all the personalities, they brought various gifts. Lord Shiva brought sword marked with 10 moons. Durga brought shield marked with 100 moons. Soma brought horses made of nectar. Lord Hari himself came and gave Sudarshan Chakra. Saraswati gave a transcendental necklace. And then Vishwakarma gave a beautiful chariot. And in this way, so many of the Devatas, they started showering gifts. And then after that, all the bards, they came and they started praying to the Supreme Lord as Prithu Maharaj. So when Prithu Maharaj, he heard all these prayers, Prithu Maharaj became grave. And he said, with a gravity of thundering clouds, it is described, Megha Nihradaya, it's like a thundering of the clouds. His voice was very, very grave. And he started speaking that I have not displayed the qualities yet. Why are you glorifying me now? So the bards might say, what is the fault if you glorify you? So Prithu Maharaj said that if I don't display these qualities, what is the fault? If I don't display these qualities, your words will go in vain. You will incur sins if I don't display these qualities. So it is better that they offered to somebody else who are displaying these qualities. But the bards say, no, all these qualities will manifest in you in future. So Prithu Maharaj says that, okay, if they will manifest in future, glorify me in future. When I exhibit those qualities, don't glorify me now. These bards may say, okay, what can we do? Because in this assembly, we are inspired to glorify you. We have already begun glorifying you. What to do now? So Prithu Maharaj says, glorify the Supreme Lord. The prayers which you are offering to me, offer to the Supreme Lord. Don't offer to a low human like me. The bard said, but you are the Supreme Lord himself. You are worthy of praise. Now, Prithu Maharaj speaks very interesting thing. He says, praising a man by saying that if he were educated, he might have become a great scholar or great personality, is nothing but a process of cheating, So don't glorify me for the future things. He says that how could an intelligent man who is competent enough to possess such exalted qualities allow his followers to praise him if he did not actually have them? If somebody is not exhibiting the qualities, he should not allow the subordinates to glorify him. And then he says, if somebody is praising for the qualities which a person does not have, that is not a praise, that is a criticism. And those people who are saintly, modest and magnanimous, they do not like to hear themselves being praised. This is a very, very wonderful thing. A devotee does not like to hear his own praise. So therefore, he says that right now I am not very famous, so therefore, please don't praise me. I have not displayed these qualities. When I display, then you can praise. So this is where Prithu Maharaj is responding. But then what happens, we'll be discussing tomorrow. This ends the 15th chapter of the 4th canto. We'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. If King Anga was pure devotee, still the son born to him was wicked. How do we understand this? Yeah, we discussed that. Sometimes Lord arranges situations in such a way that a person can become detached, in the sense, yes, before time. Yes, that is the mercy, because Anga Maharaj, he became detached from the family life. See how Lord works in different ways for different devotees that are inconceivable. Nobody can understand why. We cannot question why Lord did this. But the conclusion is somehow or other Lord wants everybody to come close to him. So like that, Yeah, sadhus are samadarshina, but still, when they see scorpions and just like envious living entities who are troubling people, they feel happy. That is another quality which is described in scriptures and Bhagavatam. That if there are living entities who are hurting people and harming people, the sages, they also feel sad and they like that these elements should be removed from the society. Khechara means those who can fly in the sky. They are Khecharas. They also came and they gave some gifts. Khechara. They gave the power to disappear, and like that. Okay, so we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we'll stop here. We'll take the questions tomorrow. I have another class now, so we'll discuss tomorrow the remaining questions. Thank you. Hare Krishna.